And just a quick cheating technique, what I do to size things up is I'll put the print right in front of the canvas and I'll shut one eye. And when you're painting trees, one thing to keep in mind is that because I'm using a tap technique to dispense the paint onto the canvas, I don't want to look for what would be like cheetah spots, perfect uniform spots, all the same size. You want to hit some of these spots harder than others to make bigger spots, lighter spots, bigger spots, lighter spots, and give a nice breakup so that it has that realistic appearance. So for now, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to connect these two because there is a break in the horizon. This section here, we know that is a further into the horizon. It looks what appears to be like maybe 15 miles away. So that's going to appear much lighter than the horizon line that we had painted in there. And so I'm going to leave that blank. You can see there's a blank space, so I'm going to leave a blank also. And just to know where I'm at, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and mix this color. And I'm going to apply it in that shape. Looks like a funnel in this case. And I'm at least going to give myself a nice marker here to where we can do that. And so for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into my original palette that used the paint to paint the sky. And I'm going to mix this color right here. I make it sound easy by saying I'm just going to mix the color. This comes from a lot of experience. When I look at any given color, it comes natural to me because I've been painting for almost 42 years. But I know what colors make this color. There's a lot of trial and error, and if you're looking for exact realism, I'll help you along here. So to make this color, I'm going to grab flesh tone, followed by pumpkin orange. I'm going to mix those together. And I know that I'm going to need some lavender. And again, this is based on experience. This is something that is never going to be taught overnight. This is going to be based on complete experience here. Once I get that in, the lavender, I'm going to grab a little bit of Dutch blue for my final mix. And just to see how close I am, I'm going to hold the paint up to the picture, knowing that when that dries, it's going to appear darker to match this color. So without further ado, I'm going to apply it to the canvas and see what I have, following the top horizon over here. And then I'm going to blow dry this to see how it looks. In this case, we're not going to settle for this because this is just nothing more than a base coat for that horizon. So we can still see some of this darker mix coming through here, which it doesn't have enough paint. So I can do one of two things. Knowing that this is a base coat, I can now use that as a primer to get more of an exact match, because now that this is dry, I know exactly what color it's going to be when it's dry. So in this case, I'm going to mix a fire orange into the mix, into that same puddle I came up with. Now we have more of an orangey gray, which in this case is more of an orangey gray. And so we'll go and use this as a secondary coat and follow what I painted previously. And don't worry about all these soft lines here. This is where we can paint back over using this same color here. Now that I know where I'm at, I just blow dry this. And now just to see where I'm at, sometimes I'll take the reference picture and I'll just simply put it up to there and see how close I am. Sometimes you can do that just to see how close you are. If you don't like it, you can just mix more colors in it. In this case today, the goal is a tutorial how I achieve there. In most cases, when I'm not being filmed, this would take a lot more focus and concentration, but this is giving you just an idea of how to accomplish where I come from, where the goals I have in mind. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to establish exactly where that sun is supposed to be. That way we can start illuminating out the yellows, the oranges, and everything that makes that glow so nicely, just like it does in nature. And just a quick cheating technique, what I do to size things up is I'll put the print right in front of the canvas and I'll shut one eye and pull it back until these parameters match perfectly on the canvas. Then when I find where the sun is, I simply put a mark. You're almost there. Here's where the sun is going to be, right here. I'm just using my pencil. Normally I use a white colored pencil if it's a dark color. That way it just shows right there. And just to mark where that's going to be, and this is the sun in this case is the whole beauty of the picture. It's showing how it affects the sky, the silhouette of the trees and all its branches. So when I look at the sun, it's a pure white. If you removed all color off of this piece of paper, you wouldn't have to remove any color from the sun. It's just a pure white disc. So we're going to grab pure white and we're just going to go right into where that sun is, where I marked it. This is going to give me a base point of how everything is going to be affected. Being that the sun is the brightest thing, we want to make it pure white. We'll give it a second coat. Once that is dry, I know now that I can't really go any further with this stage in the painting until I start knowing where my trees are. So without further ado, I'm going to take my trusted black colored pencil and we're just going to start looking at the picture where these trees are in relationship to where the sun is. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is taking this pencil, I'll be drawing the basic shapes and angles of these trees that lie in front of the whole horizon. It's going to appear like a coloring book style, just line drawing. And really and truly, that's what I do, is I'll draw the shape in there and I'll just fill in the lines that I drew. How realistic it becomes is, well, the difference between a professional and an amateur in my case. So I'll just start drawing this in. Sometimes I'll hold the print right here as a reference to get those angles right. So now that I have the basic shapes of the trees and the correct placement of where they're going to go in relationship to this, and I'm still not worried about that smear that I just did, because that's actually going to help with that sunlight here coming up. So I'm going to get my brush primed, in this case my 1/8 inch round brush, and we're going to go back into that same puddle that we mixed for all this dark here, because this dark matches this dark. So we can still use that as the same puddle that I mixed with brown and midnight blue. And since I'm left-handed, I typically start this way and work like this so I don't smear my work. One thing to keep in mind when you're doing trees is once you get the main trunk and the larger branches out of the way and the angles in which they go, all the other smaller twigs and branches will be just fillers to where the main ones come off. Think about it as an interstate. On a main interstate, you might take an exit here, which leads to smaller roads and smaller roads and smaller roads. You never really want to use the same thickness on a secondary branch size all through the picture, because now you're painting your tree doesn't look very real. So those are just things to look at when you're looking for realism, is see how it looks in the print. If you can duplicate exactly how that looks, knowing that there's smaller branches in between the main forks of a big branch, that's just one thing to look for. Trees can be pretty tricky, but this is just a technique that I've developed. So once I roughen the big branches, I'll be able to go back over and start filling in the smaller ones. So as you're using puddles of paint, the water is slowly evaporating from that puddle, which in this case you can see where it's already dried along the edges, and on this palette it's already dried. Not only is the cardboard absorbing the extra moisture, but it's also evaporating to the air. So from time to time, if you notice that when you apply paint from the same puddle, it's getting shorter to where you start seeing canvas under there in just a short stroke, I dip my brush back into there, wet it again, and swirl around into that same puddle to keep that moisture going constantly. A lot of people who paint with acrylic paint, they complain that it dries too quick. Well, if it does, the solution to that would be just to keep adding maybe like 1 or 2 drops of water. That keeps the whole puddle rejuvenated, so you can go a long duration without having to mix more paint and lose that color that you mixed. Typically what I do, and I do it just out of instinct now, I just dip it in just the tip of the brushes. You don't have to dip it all the way into the bucket. Throw that dot of water in here and I swirl it. It just mixes it nicely. And you can continue where you left off. I'm going to turn this right upside down. And you might think, why would he turn the painting upside down?